Yo, 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 what's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads out there? This is WeedMan420 with the WeedMan420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs. Weedman, how the heck are you?
Excellent.
Nice. I love that. Different word this week.
Yeah.
Well, put it up a notch. Excellent.
I put it up a bunch of notches. Excellent.
Excellent.
Maybe you can see that might be a slight exaggeration. Or maybe you could hear that.
Oh, people can.
But I'm going to have a
hear
little
that.
attitude adjustment in a minute when I smoke.
Yeah. We have been watching a show, and I'm looking it up right now. We caught it a couple of days ago, and I tell you what.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, man. If you're really baked and you really got nothing to watch and you don't want to watch like one of your normal shows, watch this show called Sexy Beast.
No brain cells required.
None whatsoever.
Pretty comical.
Yes. You want to explain the show?
Yes.
Explain it.
So you can watch it with the mindset that this is all a made-up reality and these characters are just in costume and they are fully in character going on a date. Or you could take it for what it really is. It is a dating show about two people that go on a blind date. But get this, they are dressed up like aliens, wild animals. So like they have clothing on and then from their neck up, they are in full-on like serious costume. It's intense.
Oh, my goodness.
They're amazing costumes. So it's, what is that word? They've got, prosthetic.
Yeah.
Prosthetic features on. So their noses, their cheekbones, their chins, their jaws are all covered in prosthetic. And then they've got makeup on, like full facial paint and fur and hair. And it's bizarre. And so they're just two people going on a date, a very first date, but being introduced as these characters, and so they don't know what the other person actually looks like.
It's kind of cool.
They go on a date with three people.
Yeah, it's one person, and then
Dating
has a choice between three of the
dates.
other characters. I guess you want to call
Yeah,
them.
and so you forget, like, wait a minute, is this all a joke? Or if you're high,
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh no, wait, this is a reality. It's just they're in costume. So your mind will potentially go back and forth between like, this is reality. This is really happening, or this is completely scripted. It's bizarre.
The costumes
Super bizarre.
and makeup are unreal.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
movie
And
style
some people
production.
have like hit it off. It's pretty
Yeah,
funny.
yeah,
and yeah,
It's called.
they need to do
Sexy
like a
Beast.
regroup. They do show what everyone looks like at the end, or like when they get kicked off as being one of the potentials, then they show that person without costume. And you really would never know that that's what they would have looked like.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's pretty cool.
I mean, it's a cool show to watch if you're really baked or not, and just to want to watch something that's just
Senseless, mindless.
Yes,
Yeah.
mindless. That doesn't
Easy
take
watch.
easy watch. It's just something we could watch, and it was like, I don't know, midnight.
What is it called? Hairy Beast?
No, it could be Sexy Beast.
Sexy Beast.
The makeup is great. It's a funny show.
It's
If
funny.
if you're just bored and you got nothing really to watch or don't want to watch something and you want to laugh, watch it. It's funny. We're gonna smoke, and we're smoking another strain that I got when I was in Oklahoma. This one is called Orange Cookies, which I have never smoked before.
It smells delicious.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. While Mrs. Weedman lights this up, I'm going to go into this. So this is an indica-dominant hybrid, 60% indica to 40% sativa. Orange Cookies is a slightly indica-dominant hybrid strain created through a powerful cross of insanely delicious orange juice and Girl Scout cookies, which I've smoked many a times, Girl Scout cookies. This tasty bud boasts long-lasting mellow buzz that is powered by a moderate THC level that ranges between 12 and 18%. The one that I have is 23.5%, but the THC dose is 19.32. The total cannabinoids is 23.51. The Orange Cookie Highs is characterized by euphoric cerebral buzz that starts behind the eyes and in the forehead before quickly spreading throughout the body, leaving you happy and utterly relaxed. The high is relatively mild in nature and won't cause you to experience any paranoia, anxiety, or sedation that sometimes comes with hybrid strains. That's really good to know. No paranoia. And I'm going to be talking about paranoia here in a little bit. Because of these mellows effects and its moderate THC level, Orange Cookies is said to be the perfect strain for treating patients suffering from chronic stress, anxiety, mild cases of depression, and muscle spasms or tremors. I hope it helps with my eye, because my eye's been twitching the last couple of days, which is weird. So let's see if that helps. Much like its name suggests, this bud has a tangy aroma of sweet citrus and a taste of sweet, fruity citrus and has sour, earthly tinge upon exhale. Mrs. Weedman, would you agree?
Very subtle.
Nice.
Subtle flavors, but nice. Yes.
These buds have medium-sized, super dense, lumpy, spade-shaped, light minty green nugs that are covered in fiery orange hairs and sparse spattering of white crystal chunks, trichomes, and resin. The effects is cerebral euphoria, happy, mellow, relaxing. Well, that's cool to know. It helps with anorexia, anxiety, bipolar disorder, chronic pain, depression, headaches, loss of appetite, muscle spasms, nausea, and stress. And like I said, some
What
of
is it called again?
This is called orange cookies. And the flavors are citrusy, fruity, lemon, orange, sweet, tangy, tropical. And some of the aromas are citrus, earthy, fruity, spicy, sweet. What do you think?
Well, I just keep taking more and more hits.
Is it that good?
It's tasty.
Really?
I'm trying to get like the real feel for the flavor. It's kind of creamsicle like.
Really? Give me that.
Taste it.
Let me try this. This was another
It's
honker,
tasty.
another full grammer.
Yeah, it's a big joint. It took a few drags to get it really going. I thought it was pretty tasty. Not super duper flavorful, but what do you taste?
You know my taste buds. Oh, I taste the orange on the
Orange,
exhale.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
I taste
Like
the
creamy orange.
Yeah. Wow. Another nice one from Oklahoma. I might give these this grower a plug. We have one more joint to smoke from them, I believe, and I might. So we'll see. We'll see how all three do.
Is that a
us.
threat?
No. I give.
I'm teasing. I'm
I
teasing.
know. But I'm gonna take one more hit. Mrs. Weedman, you got anything to say while I take another hit?
I'm gonna have a little plug for Airhead Extremes. Like this is a commercial. I just opened this package the other night. This is not a plug officially by any means. They're just sitting here because I devoured, and I even apologized as I ate my first one that my chewing might get really loud and obnoxious. They're really good. They're the tapes. You got to try them.
Yeah, but
especially when you're smoking.
What is your favorite candy right now, though? You ate this because
Oh
you
my
had these, but what
gosh.
is the one that you're like? And I think we might have talked about.
I'm a
this,
candy
but
junkie.
You are.
My favorite one. I don't even know what they're called. They're in a counter, like a shelf bag. It stands upright, so it's one of those smaller size bags. It's not a hang bag. It's a like bubblegum pink bag, and it says Nerds, Jumbo Nerds maybe, but they're like little nuggets of a nerd rope. Holy shit, they're so good. It's almost like if you took a gummy in the shape of a jelly bean and covered it in Nerds. Oh my gosh,
You are
they're so
addicted.
good. It's different than the big Nerds that are like one hard shell. This has all a bunch of little nerds stuck on the outside, just like a Nerds rope.
And we've had edibles
my
like that
gosh.
before that I bought when I was in
Yeah.
Michigan. But I've seen you addicted to some candy. But this is like Mrs. Weedman
I was
fanatica.
having a moment. I ended up on the Airhead Extremes last night because I dug through all the cabinets, convinced I had another bag of the Nerds. Like, I'm jonesing. I need my Nerds. So
Oh, that's so funny.
yeah, good.
Well,
candy.
we should do a candy review,
We should.
starting with Mrs. Weedman candy review. And what's
Sometimes
good,
when
what's
I'm
bad.
really high, I cannot for my life figure out what it is that I'm trying to satisfy. Is it a salty tooth, a savory tooth, a sweet tooth, a sour tooth? So I just go through the whole junk cabinet and eat all. I just graze a couple of this. Nope, that's not it. A couple of that. No, that's not it. I don't know if anyone else has that.
Well, we should start doing
We
a candy. You try a different candy every show, and
I could do
and
that.
the day before, and then give it a review. What's good, what's bad, even stuff that you would never try, just because you never know.
Never know.
There might be a stoner burner pothead that might say that candy's great. Mrs. Weedman's off.
Remember when I was on a baby bottle pop?
Oh my
Kick.
gosh, yes.
Oh my
That was
gosh.
years ago.
Those are good. It's like a step above a lick-a-stick.
The pixie stick. What were those
that
called? The
white powdery
oh,
stick that you dip in the
that
Kool-Aid
was great.
mix. Oh
I
my
remember
gosh.
those. All right,
All right,
let's
let's-
get the show
let's do it.
started. So I found this article, and I've read to you the history of cannabis before, but this one is newer, and I figured I'd read it. I found this on Inverse by Tyra Yarlagada. Sorry if I butchered that. It says, Ancient Stoners. Scientists discover the ancient birthplace of cannabis. The origin story of cannabis is wilder than we all think. For thousands of years, humans have lit up around the world, enjoying the high that comes from cannabis. But the controversial politics surrounding, as they say in this article, the drug has made it difficult for scientists to figure out its genetic origins. Where did cannabis come from, and how did it evolve into the potent green that brings us pleasure? Scientists finally have an answer to that question, and the evolution of modern-day cannabis and how it diverged from its very close relative hemp is even wilder than you might think. New research was published last Friday in the Journal of Science Advances Use Genetics to trace the ancient birthplace of cannabis sativa, from which we harvest pot today. The cultivation of cannabis has much longer roots than we previously understood, according to the study, including evidence that our cultivation of pot may have led to the extinction of pure, wild, ancient strains of cannabis. Damn it. Cannabis is one of the first cultivated crop species. Luca Fumagalli, a co-author of study from the University of Lausanne's Laboratory for Conservative Biology, tells in verse. How they did it. The research studied 110 genomes of cannabis sativa using molecular analysis and next-generation DNA sequencing, according to Fumagalli. From the DNA analysis, the research built phylogenetic trees that show the relationship between the evolution of 4 genetically distinct groups of cannabis. Basal cannabis. The group is sister to all other cannabis categories, including all human-grown or cultivated hemp and psychoactive cannabis in the world. It includes wild plants and traditional cannabis hybrids known as landraces found in modern China. We've talked about landrace strains before, and this is the basal, B-A-S-A-L, cannabis. Then there's hemp. This group includes all hemp varieties found around the world. Hemp is a variety of cannabis sativa that is distinguished from other cannabis strains by its lower level of tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, the psychoactive ingredient that makes cannabis such a potent plant. They put drug in this article. I'm going to change that drug to plant. Hemp, unlike its psychoactive counterpart, is non-typically considered a plant and was traditionally used to make fiber for clothing and other materials. The first group of it says here drug, the first group of cannabis, this group includes wild strains of cannabis with drug-like properties similar to cannabis from China, India, and Pakistan, as well as one cultivated cannabis variety from India. The second group of cannabis, this group includes varieties of cannabis with psychoactive-like properties that have been cultivated around the world. The crucial basal cannabis group hadn't been detected in previous research, a fact that Fumagalli found very surprising. There's this cool map on this article, too, of like where it came from, and shows different areas with where different strains came from. So if you have a chance to go on this website, it's pretty cool. What they found. Through these genetic groupings, specifically the basal cannabis grouping, scientists learned the origin of domesticated cannabis can be traced to East Asia, including parts of modern-day China. The finding challenges previous research stating that cultivated cannabis originated in Central Asia. The split between ancient basal cannabis and modern cultivated cannabis occurred roughly 12,000 years ago, placing cannabis in the distinguished categories of one of the first cultivated crops on Earth. These early cultivated cannabis crops formed separate hemp and cannabis genetic groups about 4,000 years ago. The date coincides with the first appearance of the fiber artifacts in East Asia, which spread west to Europe according to agricultural evidence from the Bronze Age. Bronze Age? Damn. Fiber from hemp is the popular source of clothing, food, and oil after a comeback in recent years. The researchers state that psychoactive cannabis spread from East Asia to India around 3,000 years ago. In the last 1,000 years, the drug reached the Latin America and Africa it didn't get to North America until much more recently. Change that word drug and just put plant. Around the beginning of the 20th century, European colonists introduced hemp varieties to North America in the 1600s, which were replaced by Chinese varieties by the 1850s. Ultimately, the research finds strong genetic difference between hemp and cannabis in their study. However, they also concluded cannabis was likely used as multi-purpose crop, not just used for psychoactive effect. In East Asia, for thousands of years before humans used selective breeding to turn it into the potent THC Latin green we know today, possibly ancient cannabis was a multi-purpose crop. Fiber, food, medicine, recreational until 4,000 years ago, when it started to undergo a strong artificial selection for either fiber production, hemp, or increased cannabinoid synthesis, cannabis, Fumagalli said. In fact, the human cultivation of cannabis had such a strong effect on the genetic evolution of cannabis that research suggests the pure wild ancestors of cannabis sativa have gone extinct. Damn it. Therefore, the human hand may have effectively engineered the most controversial plant into existence. Wow, so it was our fault. I'm going to take a sip of water. So it was us as humans changed the genetics of this plant so many times that we caused it to grow THC, as far as I'm reading.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Why it matters. Due to a controversial and illicit nature of cannabis, which remains illegal in many countries and states in the U.S., it's been difficult to track its genetics, origins, and evolutionary history. The scientists write, clandestine's plant breeding has contributed to the difficulties for reconstruction the species' domestication history. The study takes a remarkable first step in tracing the evolutionary origins of modern cannabis, especially at the time when many lawmakers are considering whether or not to legalize the plant. As the research note, few crops have been under the spotlight of controversy as much as cannabis sativa. Their findings shed light on the complex history of cannabis evolution and domestication, helping us understand how it became the controversial crop it is today. What's next? Although Fumagalli doesn't have any specific plans to expand on the research at the moment, the findings themselves provide enough fodder for heated debate among weed enthusiasts, genetics, and plant regulators. Through their research, the scientists were able to trace the genetic differences between hemp and psychoactive cannabis, which differences in gene sequences that code for the cannabinoid CBD in hemp and THC in other strains, respectively. Hemp is characterized by its lower THC content than its counterparts, which is why it doesn't produce a typical high sense of the other cannabis strains. Although the scientists found genetic divergences in the expression of THC and CBD genes in all cannabis strains studied, they also found 5 hemp samples that contain more genetic complexity than we previously thought. The evolutionary findings challenge the traditional legal divide between hemp and pot, suggesting it might be more arbitrary than scientific in reason. The researchers state, as such, the results call into question from both a biological and functional point of view the current binary categorization of cannabis plants as hemp or, it says here, marijuana. So in order to resolve the present-day cannabis debate, perhaps we need to take a look at the unexpected place, its evolutionary past. Abstract cannabis sativa has long been an important source of fiber extracted from hemp in both medicinal and recreational plant based on cannabinoid compounds. Here we investigated its poorly known domestication history using only genomes requenching of the 110 accessions from worldwide origins. We show that C. sativa was the domesticated in early neological times in East Asia, and that all current hemp and drug cultivators diverged from ancestral gene pool currently represented by feral plants and land races in China. Damn. So, I've been wondering a long time when I found this article too, and since I've read the history of it all, it's interesting to me to see this as more and more developed. But in reading this article, the word drug needs to come out and be replaced, and marijuana needs to be replaced. So I think as more reading, I see more and more people still using those words. But the article was great. So hopefully it helps you understand a little bit more about the history of cannabis. Here's another great one. And I just told you about a strain we're smoking that doesn't cause paranoia. So why does weed make some people paranoid? Does it ever make you paranoid?
I think the more I understand cannabis and effectively how I feel when I consume cannabis, no. There are times where I wouldn't even... Maybe it's a little bit of paranoid, like you feel like you're talking but you're not, that kind of a thing. So it's more of, yeah, I guess you do. Not like a fearful paranoia.
I think early on in my stage of cannabis use, I always thought paranoia. I always felt like I was paranoid, and then reading and learning a lot more and talking about paranoia on the show, finding out like one of my favorite lines from Duncan Trussell was, maybe it was just your mind trying to figure shit out,
right?
And you're not. But in my early years of smoking, I remember like being at a party and all of a sudden like I felt like a little like
everyone's laughing at you, or
yeah, or like, oh shit, there's like a lot of people here, kind of thing.
You're gonna be in trouble. Like parents are gonna come home,
right?
Like,
something like
even
that.
Even if you weren't at a party like that,
right?
You have weird thoughts.
Now I don't, but there's still some situations where I might be in that it's like, ooh, kind of. But it's like I said, if you're sitting at home and your mind is wandering in all the bad places, that's just your mind trying to figure shit out. Get out of it. Only think good thoughts and think positivity when it comes to that. So I feel people talk about it a lot, like, hey, weed, cannabis makes me paranoid when I smoke it, eat it, whatever. Let's talk about this article a little bit. One of the unpleasant side effects of using cannabis is feeling a little paranoia or anxiety. While these feelings only impact a small percentage of users and often comes as a result of consuming highly potent cannabis, for anyone who has ever experienced them, the question remains, why do I feel this way and how do I make it stop? It's an issue intriguing enough to interest scientists. A typical study doesn't have a very sexy title. An often cited study from the U.S. and European researchers is called multiple, let's just call it MMD, modes of endocannabinoid mobilization at central amygdala glutamatergic synapses. Jeez. Oof. That's awful. Sounds awful. Still, they make for interesting reading and help explain why cannabis affects some people differently. Why do some people get paranoid when they use cannabis? It's all about the firing of synapses in the brain, which is where the THC in cannabis makes its impact, and why it can offer relief from PTSD or possibly even slow the onset of dementia. It also interacts with the endocannabinoid system, a nerve signaling system throughout the body that maintains physiological and emotional and cognitive stability. Compounds within cannabis, including THC, bind to receptors in the endocannabinoid system, including those in the brain. One of the areas in the brain this binding occurs in the amygdala. So a lot of those on the, is that how it's pronounced? AMYGDALA.
Isn't there a song about that?
Yes, it's from a movie, Waterboy. The medulla oblongata, is that it?
Medulla oblongata.
That's it. So I don't think that's the word, but
that's the word that you're supposed to be saying?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Oblongata.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks. Which is considered the center of the brain for integrating emotions. It regulates your response to fearful and threatening stimuli, anxiety, and stress. It also helps regulate paranoia. The research mentioned above found that cannabis rich in THC may overstimulate receptors in the amygdala, causing excess feelings of fear, anxiety, and paranoia. How's that word go again?
Oblongata.
There you go. But what's the other word you said first from Waterboy? When he was talking about the gators, and they have like their Abdullah. I can't pronounce it. I'm too baked.
Say it, isn't it?
This is AMYGDALA.
What?
Exactly. Why are words so hard?
Didn't I just say it a minute ago?
Yeah,
but no,
did.
I can't get it. Can't help
People
you
who
anymore.
use CBD products do not experience this issue because CBD does not bind to the endocannabinoid receptors in the same way as THC. Reasons you might be prone to feeling paranoia. Certain people feel paranoia and fear stronger than others, while many may not have those feelings at all. Researchers have developed some theories as to why. A 2019 study of animals found that those who experienced the impact of cannabis on the front region of the brain experienced positive effects such as reduced anxiety and relaxation. Those who experienced the effects on the back portion of the brain are more prone to increased anxiety and fear. That leads researchers to believe that how people experience cannabis depends on certain extent on genetics that governs what part of the brain cannabis impacts the most. That's so interesting. Other research shows the potency of cannabis plays a role. Those with higher concentrations of THC can cause feelings of paranoia in those more susceptible to those feelings. The study involved Delta-9 THC, not the less potent Delta-8 that is gaining in popularity. Gender may also play a role, as higher estrogen levels have shown higher sensitivity to cannabis. So, what can you do to reduce paranoia? The top tip for those who want to reduce the chance of feeling paranoid is to experiment with your own tolerance level. Experts such as a good bud tender will likely recommend either a low THC strain or small doses of more potent strain. It's also important to create a relaxing environment to do things you enjoy, such as listening to music, taking a warm bath. People who are still new to using cannabis may also benefit from having a trusted friend with them, right? We've talked about that before many times. You're my best friend, so I like smoking with you every night.
BFFs forever. We should get one of those necklaces. You wear half and I wear the other half. Should they be hearts or like kittens?
Can it be the middle finger?
What the fuck?
Exactly. That's our favorite word. Some also suggest trying a whiff of pepper, which contains terpenes that share some similarities to those found in cannabis. Deep breathing helps relax the body. Most people feeling anxiety and fear start to take very shallow breaths, often without realizing it. Most importantly, if you experience paranoia, just stay calm. Try some of the ideas above, and keep in mind that feeling eventually will pass. This too shall pass. I like that article a lot because a lot of people we have talked to, and why they don't use cannabis anymore is because of paranoia. Be careful when you're taking pepper and you're putting it by your nose, though, and don't sniff it up there. You'll sneeze
Oof.
a lot.
Yeah, then you'd definitely not be paranoid anymore
No,
because you'd
no.
be thinking you're going to die.
But I thought
Well, maybe then you'd be paranoid.
Maybe. I thought this was a really
don't
good
know.
article, and we've talked about paranoia on the show before. And just remember that there is a lot of high THC out there right now. And, all the way up to 36% I've seen. I've heard even higher, up to 42. Don't forget there's moon rock. There's so much out there that makes high potency. You have to expand, and especially the beginning phases of your cannabis journey. And Mrs. WeedMan, I think, has talked about this before. Keep just a track journal for a while on your phone. Use a journal app or the notes app, and just put Mr. WeedMan's smoke strains of the month. And just write down some notes of how it made you feel. If that strain made you paranoid, then don't smoke that strain. Give another strain a chance. Start low. It's the same thing we talk about edibles. Start low, go slow. With joints or with flour or and if you're not ready yet, concentrates and oils and stuff like that, start the lowest THC content you can find. Start with a 15%, a 12%. There's strains out there you can find that are low. I've smoked some 14% strains. Actually, one of the strains I grew was 14%, and I love it. So I don't mind the low. I still get high. I still get baked. It's not like you're not going to get baked and get the feelings you want, but you might not be in your head. And sometimes you just don't want to go in your head. So it's okay out there. And if you're smoking with people, don't be afraid to ask, hey, what strain is this? Do you know the THC, especially if you're new? What's the THC percentage? Do you know the terpenes in there? Because there might be a terpene in there your body doesn't like either. And not everybody's going to know everything about their strains. Just remember that. And don't be frustrated. Bring your own then. And then you know it, and then you can explore with other people. Or just ask them, have they smoked that strain before? And if they said yes, say, hey, did it make you paranoid at all? Or did it make you have the munchies? Or did it make you laugh a lot? Or did it make you sleepy? So that's the best person to probably ask, even though your endocannabinoid system might take that strain a little bit differently. At least you know some of the effects that you're going to expect. And we should, as the cannabis community, be helping others and talking to others about their cannabis journey, because it's only going to help, I guess you want to say, free the plant.
I wonder how, when they conclude what cannabis, like each strain, will provide you with in terms of your sensations. Is it based on surveys of users just interjecting their own personal experience and opinion, or is it based literally just on the scientific definition of each of the terpenes and cannabinoids?
It depends. People get it tested of what's in it, and over the years of people probably smoking their own strain at home, but professional growers, most, I should say all cultivators now have to get their cannabis tested, and it shows you that, the terpenes in there, and some of those terpenes have effects. So with those terpene effects, at least they can tell you what this might make you feel based off of the terpenes. And then maybe what cannabinoids are in there. If it's THC, well, what does THC give you the effects
It'd be interesting if there was research that they took what the scientific description would tell them about each of the terpenes and then do surveys from users and see if, how often a user's response is actually matching up to the scientific description of what it would do.
Yeah, I'm sure there has been some.
And what percentage of people get that response and what percentage get a different response.
Right.
It'd be neat.
Yeah, it would be. I'll be part of that testing if someone wants to test me.
Right? You just have to go get high and push some buttons and say yes, no, yes, no.
Amazing. So I hope that helps a little bit more about paranoia and anxiety. Give cannabis a chance. If you didn't like it the first time, find a different strain. Ask questions. Email Mr. and Mrs. WeedMan. We'll answer.
Yeah, I think find a different strain and definitely smoke in a controlled environment.
Yep.
Someplace where you're really comfortable, that it won't cause those side effects to potentially happen in a strain that they wouldn't or shouldn't happen with.
Yeah, 100%. Mrs. Weedman,
Yep.
we talk about women a lot in this show. We talk about everybody on this show. We had our Women's History Month, which I love doing with you and having Ellen from Do the Pot on. But as I read more into this and always reading articles and always researching and always, are women losing a little bit of maybe like their reputation in cannabis, their power, their CEO status?
Yeah. Not their reputation.
Not their reputation.
No.
Okay.
But they're losing their status and their positions. And this is a really disheartening article to me. I would say it was probably 2013, probably 14 or 15 that I started going to a couple networking events in the Chicago area with the Illinois Women in Cannabis. And they're a pro-cannabis organization, and especially a pro-women working in cannabis organization, or somehow being involved in the community or the profession or professions that are affiliated with cannabis. Anyway, this is disheartening because at that time, 6-7 years ago, women were big players. There were a lot of women in really predominant roles within the cannabis business here in Chicago. At that time, it was just the medical cannabis community. So this is an article about women losing their power in cannabis at an alarming rate. In October 2017, Marijuana Business released the results of a survey of women in the cannabis industry. The survey found that women held 37% of executive level roles in the cannabis industry. This was a milestone that women thought the industry celebrated with excitement and promise, as many women leaders began to plot the path to achieving 50% in 5 years. These numbers were used to encourage women across the country to leave their traditional corporate jobs and find a place where they could contribute their skills to the growing industry. The high gains made activists believe that women really could hold power in a lucrative and dominating industry. The numbers inspired women to apply for licenses and open ancillary businesses, hoping to be among those benefiting from such strong industry support. Well, the bubble burst in August of 17 when Marijuana Business announced those numbers had dropped to 27%.
Damn.
It was still considered a win. In U.S. business as a whole, women only comprised 27% of executive positions. So in cannabis, there's a higher number of women. But it wasn't really a win. It was a sting, and it reverberated throughout the community. Women started leaving cannabis faster than they were coming in. Then came another blow. A Vank survey in 2019 revealed only 17.6% of women surveyed held a director or executive role. In 2020 took women in the U.S. out of the workforce in droves, and now 1 in 4, I didn't know this either, is considering not returning to work. Oof. That's surprising.
Yeah.
It isn't just the cannabis industry that's suffering a loss of female talent. The future is looking grim for those women still working in cannabis. In March 2021, Benzinga released a report saying that only 8% of CEOs in cannabis are women. Women are truly losing ground in cannabis fast. So what are women supposed to do about this loss of power? How do they stop this power drain from continuing? How bad can it get if it isn't stopped? What incredible opportunity are they protecting if they get in and fight for it? Well, power, as defined by Merriam-Webster, is the possession and control, authority, or influence over others. Possessing power, pursuing power, and craving power are all seen through this lens, an exercise of influence over others. This can be unsettling or intimidating for women and can make them hesitant to hold onto power or wield it effectively. Another definition of power is a source or means of supplying energy. If we view it through this lens, we see it as our flow of energy contributing to the creation of the industry. It isn't just about having influence per se, but having a consistent and strong flow of energy filling the cannabis industry from women. This is how women will create the industry they've dreamt of. One of the most effective tools women have to create more power is through collaboration, but that can be full of challenges. From personality clashes to broken promises or failed expectations, working with others is full of pitfalls. Yet, it's also the key to creating a power source that has an impact. If women align themselves for a common purpose to pay, promote, partner, and protect one another, their power or energy source will be strong and undeniable in the industry. The Women Empowered in Cannabis Leadership Summit, Power and Collaboration, will be taking a deep dive into the power dynamics and collaboration challenges among the cannabis supply chain. While it's easy to see with the statistics from a top level, it's not as obvious how these power losses are occurring throughout the industry. Examining the unique dynamics of each part of the supply chain and shining a light on them is the first step in taking back the power women have lost over these last few years. So, ladies, we just can't lose our space in this industry. We can't give up. People are going to have to fight for it. If it's diminishing, on a monthly basis, we're not far from being pushed out completely. And this was really, in Illinois anyway, it was a very female-driven industry, and I think we can get back there. We just need some ladies who want to kick some ass and not put up with the nose.
Never put up with the nose.
Don't put up with the nose.
So while you were going through that article and I was paying attention, I went and looked up that word that I couldn't pronounce, and let's see how Google pronounces it, because I'm just pissed off at myself.
Amygdala?
Yeah. Amygdala. Okay, so I was way off.
What about Abdullah Oblongata?
You just said it right. You said it perfect. Yeah. That's the thing that makes gators want to sleep with other gators in a gator kind of way.
All right. Well, I'm glad we know that now.
Oh, shit. So I just had to figure out that word for myself, and hopefully it helps all of you, because I'm not that smart. So there you go. Illinois faces legal challenges to the latest cannabis social equity licensing plan. There's a company based out of Michigan that's trying to sue Illinois because they're not getting any of the new dispensaries. They're not going to be allowed to get in. So the Salzo filed a lawsuit in the Northern District of Illinois that has invested more than $350,000 in licensing processes and had qualified for social equity status through an employment provision. But now, since the suit they're effectively excluded from the 130 of the 185 potential licenses because of the new rules that give special priority to those social equity applicants who qualified under the ownership method, while specifically excluding those that qualified under the employee method. So we'll see how much this gets held up, because I think, as I talked about in the last episode, the end of this month, some of the licenses are going to the lottery, then 2 times in August. So a lot of the stuff's going to be divvied out. So hopefully it's been going on long enough. New York. Cannabis no longer seized at airport checkpoints. That's the same thing like LA. That's the same thing in Seattle. It's a lot of states. I mean, if you're taking people's cannabis, man, going through the airport, man, you're wrong. That's their medicine. So good for you, New York. Proud of you. Congress could vote to protect people from losing public housing for cannabis use. I think it's supposed to happen this week. Let's hope that happens. So, because public housing is federal, and I've read before some laws and regulations about in Illinois, and federally though, because it's public housing, if you're smoking cannabis in it, you can, because it's federally illegal. So Congress is trying to stop the people getting kicked out for doing it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Republican lawmakers tell Biden to keep cannabis campaign promise by reclassifying it under federal law. Good for you. So all of you guys need to get together and fix this shit. So Georgia to allow 6 companies to legally produce, distribute medical cannabis oil. That's it? Just oil? Can't you let them distribute flour, edibles? Come on, Georgia. Colorado releases report on impact of cannabis legalization. This was kind of cool. Released a new report from the state's Division of Criminal Justice that is shedding light on the impact of cannabis legalization in the state, nearly 8 years after voters passed a historic ballot measure to end prohibition on cannabis. The report released this month provided a wide array of data points detailing how legalization has affected law enforcement and cannabis use among Colorado residents. For example, The report notes that between 2012, when Colorado voters passed the amendment legalizing the sale possession of cannabis in 2019, cannabis-related court filings declined 55% between 2012 and 2019 from 9,000, almost 10,000 to under 5,000. That's pretty good. The report also found a notable spike in cannabis use among adults, perhaps not a surprise given the greater accessibility after the change in the law. 19% of adults reported cannabis use in the past 30 days, compared to 13.4% in 2014, a significant increase. The usage is particularly pronounced among men, and Colorado males have significantly higher past 30 days at 22%, females at 15.1%, according to the report. Colorado breaks down usage. The highest 30-day use occurred among adults from 26 to 34, nearly 30% of whom report using cannabis in that span. Well, that's pretty good. So I'm not going to go through this whole thing. I was interested in this because somebody told me a long time ago, probably about 5 years ago, when talks in the Midwest were going to start coming more and more about cannabis legalization in Illinois especially, that look at Colorado, look at all of the disaster that passing cannabis laws in Colorado, making it legal. Look at it. Their economy is shit, which is a lie. People are living homeless on the streets. I don't really know so much about that, but I'm just telling you I haven't seen it, and it's not because of cannabis. So people are moving to the state because they can get cannabis legally to help their children who have ailments that only CBD or THC helps. So, I mean, especially, I'm pretty baked. What child, not concussion syndrome, when they,
SIDS, when they suffocate when they're sleeping.
No. What's Charlotte Figge? What did she have?
She had a seizure disorder.
So a lot of parents moved to Colorado to be able to get cannabis there for their children. So that's some good facts, though, and I'm glad I got to see this after I had an argument with somebody 5 years ago. So, Utah cannabis lawsuit alleges impropriety in House state doled out growers license. Well, come on, Utah, let's go fix that shit. Here's a good one. Kansas City mayor files ordinance to ban pre-employment cannabis testing for most city workers. Good for you, Kansas City. I like that place. Good barbecue. U.S. Sports Authority backs liberalization of cannabis laws, officials tell lawmakers. I had an idea. So basically, because of what happened to Sha'Carri Richardson over the testing, a lot of stuff's going to be getting changed, I bet, with the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, with the Olympics. But I was talking to Mrs. WeedMan today, and I had an idea. And I'm happy for Sha'Carri Richardson that she got signed by Dr. Dre. And there's and Kanye, and there's a lot of people backing her up. She got signed to Beats, right? That we saw.
Yep.
It's good for her. And I saw somebody else offer her $250,000 to sign on with them to smoke their cartridges. I don't know if she's taking it. It doesn't matter. I know people are supporting her in certain ways. But I had an idea, which I thought was fun.
Bring it on.
And I think that Dr. Dre should put her in the LA Coliseum in her track uniform. And the race that she was supposed to race in the Olympics, in that heat, when they say ready, set, go, and they should do it here in the United States and have it her racing being filmed, and then on the big screens around simultaneously, and then all of a sudden the gun goes off and she races the people that are racing at the same time. And to see who the true champ. Who cares if she gets the gold medal or not? Just to prove that she should be there and that she can beat anybody on those tracks.
That would be cool.
So, Dr. Dre, you probably don't.
I just think sometimes without like actual live competition,
right,
it's a disadvantage.
It's going to be live. There's no one at the stadium.
I know, but you're always going to run faster when you know you're running against somebody physically.
But I think this is to prove to the world. I think it would be cool. I think to prove to the world that she's the fastest woman, she would step up to that plate and whoop some ass. Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Dre, you have the power to do this. You have friends in high places. You probably don't listen to WeedMan420, but if somebody does it knows Dr. Dre, tell him that idea. Because I don't know when she was supposed to race, but it'd be dope.
Yeah.
It's just an idea. Stoner at burner pothead idea. Amazon lobbies U.S. government on cannabis report. This says, he flew with a penis-sized rocket ship to space. Did look like a penis.
It was not penis size. I'll just tell you, he wouldn't fit.
Very large.
He wouldn't
penis.
fit inside of that.
So it looked like a very large penis. And the memes and the GIF, everything out were amazing. So now he's down. And now he wants to get high again, and he's sending probably tons of money and trying to get some stuff done. If it helps get cannabis legalized, but for his benefit, bah. So you take that penis-sized rocket and shove it up your ass.
Oh, my.
Sorry, Mr. Bezos. Since Mrs. Weedman, we talked about women in CEO level, but there's a former Yahoo CEO that shares advice for the cannabis entrepreneurs. And she says you have to have some marbles, cojones.
Yeah. Yep. So we're going to talk here about former Yahoo CEO Carol Bartz. And as Mr. Weedman said, she said to be a cannabis entrepreneur, you have to have some cojones. A few weeks ago, Carol Bartz, former CEO of Autodesk and Yahoo, was all over the news after seed-to-sale cannabis company Caliva announced she was part of a group that had invested $75 million into the company, alongside NFL legend Joe Montana.
Did you say Joe Montana?
Yeah.
Montana.
Montana, that's what I said. All right, don't mess with me, I'm high. Surprisingly, the 70-year-old tech industry superstar was very open about her cannabis use, disclosing her predilection not only for the super trendy non-psychoactive CBD, but also for THC, the psychoactive compound found in cannabis that makes people feel high. I do consider myself a progressive, kind of experimental person, Bartz told me during a recent conversation, as she discussed her first experience with medical cannabis, which she described as crazy good. Bartz has a computer science degree and programmed her first computer in 1968. At the time, her friends kept asking why she was doing something that took so much time and didn't provide any credit toward her degree. Despite her friends' skepticism, Bartz carried on. She remembers vividly the first time she ever finished writing a program. Wow, this is going to change everybody's lives, she thought at the time. But beware, for being progressive is not the same as being stupid, Bartz warned. She brought up the story to illustrate her progressive thinking. It happened approximately 35 years ago when she was working at Sun Microsystems. One of her employees brought up that a beer company that was supposed to be a great recipe had a plan to outsource its production to Bartz's home state, Minnesota, and asked if she wanted to invest in them. It turns out it was Pete's Wicked Ale, which was behind Sam Adams, the second biggest artisanal beer maker in the U.S. I made lots of money. This is yet another example of what I see in Caliva. It's different, and they've got a great team, she said. As readers can tell by now, Bartz has decades of experience in building and investing in innovative businesses. I wonder if she had learned anything from her days in programming in the late 60s that she could apply to the cannabis industry today. Bartz responded with a saying of hers, fail, fast forward. What this means is, to move forward, you can't be afraid to fail. But if you fail, try to figure it out as fast as you can, and then hopefully move a half step forward and keep doing that. People who are too structured and are afraid to try something new and fail won't make it in the new environment like this. You have to have some cojones. You have to be able to get out there and try. She ended up with another saying, laughing again, showing her characteristic humor and good mood. If you don't try, you definitely won't do it, she said. I was hooked with that fail, fast forward philosophy of Bartz's. Having failed and flashed forward many times, what kind of advice could she share? Just when you think that everything that's going to be done is done, boom, out comes something else. Look at what's happening with a cure for cancer and some very specialized targeted medicines. I think the same thing will happen in the cannabis industry. There will not just be different strains and potencies, but different molecular combinations that really do different things for the body, she said, calling for the rescheduling of cannabis and a change in its federally illegal status so that it can be properly studied and tested. So here's the actual piece of advice from her. Be open-minded. A lot of times that means not only open-minded about where the product could go, but open-minded about the kind of people you need at the time. For instance, in the beginning, you might need agro-technology expertise more than you need extraction technology expertise. What happens is companies can get in a rut And they are the ones that work on the new ideas. I mean, look at Apple. Apple was in a rut for a while, actually, for quite a long while. It just wasn't an interesting company. Then a new leader comes in and blows Apple open. So the lesson here is that you need to be adaptable, adjustable, and smart enough to make some really hard decisions and just go for it. So, good words of advice.
Yeah. Another, I mean, reading from
She's
that
a-
one article
yeah.
to her, just proves that women can do it, and just maybe have to have that extra fight.
Yep.
What were you going to say?
That she seems like she's a really intelligent woman.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know more about her history. Yeah, through her career.
Yeah. Low-cost medical cannabis flower to be exported from Colombia for the first time. Was that fireworks or thunder?
No, I'm hearing thunder outside.
Thunder? I thought it was fireworks at first.
At first, I thought so too, but it's thunder.
Thunder?
Ooh.
My outdoor plant's going to get more rainwater. Nice.
That outdoor plant is as tall as me.
Ooh, it's getting big.
Yeah.
She needs a trim. Just a little off the bottom. Not the top, the bottom. Good for Colombia. There's a lot of animosity going there right now, praying for them out there. So, but it's going to be a good legal way for them to do things. There's a picture of a cannabis farm, man, that just looks like it goes from acres upon acres. Mrs. WeedMan, don't do it. I'm just kidding. Mrs. WeedMan had a little candy attack eating those airheads.
They're so good.
They look good. Canadian cannabis sales reached new record, 313 million in May. Man, just tons. British Columbia did something like 46 million. Saskatchewan did 12 million. Manitoba did 11.9. Nova Scotia did 7.2. New Brunswick did 6.4. Newfoundland did 4.7. Oh, we made a new friend in Newfoundland. I'm going to be sending him some stickers. Toronto did 41 million. Montreal did 25 million. Edmonton did 20. Calgary did 15. Vancouver did 14. Ottawa 10. Winnipeg 8. Quebec 5. Gatineau 1.5. That's a lot of cannabis sales. That's pretty good, Canada. We made a new friend up there, too. It's great. UK revealed as Europe's fastest growing hub for cannabis investment. Getting ready out there, the UK. Hopefully, you don't let all these outside investors and stuff take over, which you guys should be doing on your own. That's all I got to say about that. So, Philbridge ships South Africa's first medical cannabis export. Good for Philbridge. Praying for South Africa, too. Man, hope they can get better out there. Barcelona, where we went, great part in Spain. There's some new regulations that might hurt the cannabis social clubs in Spain. And in Spain, from what I have read and talked to people about, they have social clubs where you can join memberships to, and that's where you go and get your cannabis. Spain is an exciting cannabis hub. In Barcelona and other parts of the country, one can join members-only clubs to grow and smoke cannabis. The laws regarding such clubs are flexible, but they have to consider if such laws are aiding violent crimes. The country has a permissive attitude towards cannabis. Personal cannabis use was decriminalized in the 1970s. In Barcelona, you will find a statue of Christopher Columbus holding 2 cannabis plants. Columbus was a known hemp user who utilizing it in varying ways, and he credited to be one who smuggled it into Europe. Therefore, it's safe to say that cannabis is part of the Spanish culture and history, and increasingly evident in Barcelona's cannabis social clubs. There are non-profit clubs that allow the members to bask in the feel of growing and smoking cannabis in a legal space. That's dope. However, due to lack of legalization with poor enforcement, the permissions granted by the clubs are vulnerable to abuse by criminal groups. The situation is challenging, one that threatens the safe use of cannabis, and one has to wonder what can be done. Cannabis social clubs in Spain, especially in Barcelona, were created because of the soft legislation in Spain instead of legislation or decriminalized obtained in other countries. Ideally, a cannabis club in Spain is supposed to be a non-profit group of people who gather to pay upkeep fees, grow, and smoke cannabis. The sale of cannabis in those clubs is illegal as membership fees are meant to cover the operational cost of the clubs. There are many such clubs, up to hundreds of them, with some having the official tag and others still operating under the radar. The weed grown by club members is supposed to not exceed 3 grams per person. How can you just grow 3 grams per plant? Well, you've grown a little bonsai plant. Rolling papers and pipes are usually for sale at social clubs as well. The increase in cannabis tourism in Spain, organized crime is stepping into the mix. They're saying what can be done. There are different ways through which the Spanish authorities can deal with the challenge, and these range are heightened to flexible legislation regardless of their choice of action. They must implement solutions seriously, else the situation will deteriorate. Expanding legal legislation might help this. Policing, tightening legislation, which don't do. Just write some laws to help figure this out. Bottom line, on the surface, a relaxed disposition towards the consumption and growth of cannabis in Spain is fantastic. The law was set up to have the right to grow and smoke cannabis if they desire, with the state taking a more liberal stance towards it. Okay, so I'm going to answer that part right there. The way you fix this is don't do it in social clubs. Let people just grow in their own home. So then you could just take the social clubs out of it and maybe still have them as dispensaries instead, where you can sell legally and buy licenses to do it, but let people grow at home and sell to the dispensary. It's just my idea. And then the dispensary can then use it to sell and keep their doors open while people are growing 8 plants and it's getting tested and they send it there and let people make money in Spain. Instead of just doing it where this law is all fucked up. So that's just my advice. Hopefully you can fix it, Spain. We like music, right? Trying to play a guitar,
You're playing air guitar?
Air guitar. We like music, right?
We
talk
do.
about hip-hop a lot in the show, but we also talk a little bit about Willie Nelson a lot. We like his music. We talk a little bit about every music, but we have not talked about rock that much.
No,
No.
I guess we haven't.
And we love classic rock. We like new rock. We like old rock. We like all kinds of rock.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked much about it. So what are some rock albums for burners, stoners, and potheads?
I have a list of 10 stoner rock albums that you should definitely own if you like rock, of course. We've had other playlists that we've talked about, and yes, a lot of hip hop, but this is definitely
Yeah, we've
rock.
talked about EDM
Yeah.
on the show a lot. We've talked about trance, techno, but we haven't given rock too much. Sorry, rock and roll heads, we love you, and we love rock and roll. So,
Well, take some deep grooves and riffs and a few progressive ideas, roll them up, inhale deeply, and you've got the 10 best stoner rock albums. Ask any band that's been called stoner over the past 3 decades exactly what that term means, and you'll get some blank expressions. Because if there ever was a meaningless genre term, then stoner has to be it. And yet, well, we all understand what's meant by the term, right? Well, of course, as usual, there may be a number of variations within the genre. So there literally is a stoner genre of music. Didn't know that. Crazy. But essentially, stoner defines bands who are heavily influenced by classic rock, hard rock names from the 1970s, like Black Sabbath,
woo!
Blue Cheer, Neil Young, Grand Funk, all routed through a love of Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke lifestyle. You get the idea?
I love listening to the Allman Brothers baked.
Yeah,
They're good.
they are good.
Leonard Skinner's great when you're baked.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I guess it has something to do with everyone being into weed, laughed Monster Magnet main man David Weindorf when asked what stoner meant to him. The doyens of stoner rock are Masters of Reality, Cuse, Fu Manchu, and Monster Magnet, the bands from which so many strands have grown over the past 15 years. Those are the bands that came rushing headlong with their deep grooves and riffs, puffed up by a blood rush of progressive ideas. However, it was the queens of the Stone Age who rolled all of this up into a consistently more commercially acceptable and successful concoction, sharpening up songs to make them appetizing to a wider audience than stoner previously appealed to. What this movement also did was encourage musicians to test their limits and work within each other in a fluid situation. It didn't matter what band you were supposedly with, why not jam with others? That has been the basis for Queens of the Stone Age principal, Josh Holmes' Desert Sessions series, which has even persuaded talents like PJ Harvey to get involved. Today, the stoner movement is more diverse than ever, but it has remained steadfastly underground. The chart success of Monster Magnet and Queens of the Stone Age has done little to persuade either of the bands or the major labels to trust one another. And yet, its importance has never been greater. And let's not forget, when most people decried the 1970s, the stoner bands were actively defending its meaning. reason enough to hail this is a vital genre. So here we go with the 10 albums. This weed, it's very hard to stay focused.
I feel real mellow, like
Yeah.
really good. Yeah,
I feel mellow, but I'm finding myself like with my cursor on my papers that I'm reading from, I keep moving the cursor around in all crazy directions, and then I can't read. So
I'm just
having a little struggle over here.
I'm not. I'm enjoying listening to you
All right.
talk about this article.
So we're gonna go through 10 of the best albums that you should have in your collection.
Now, these aren't our.
I don't know who a lot of these are.
I do. These are not our personal
I
favorites.
bet
This
if
is
I
just-
heard most of them,
Yeah.
I'd know something,
yeah.
right?
But this is just what this.
This is number 1.
Yep.
You ready? Kyuss. Kyuss. Kyuss.
Your cues.
Album is Blues for the Red Sun. Dolly, 1992. I think Dolly is the producer, or the label. So many of today's stoner giants, Josh Homme, Nick Oliveri, and Brant Bjork, among them, started out in Kyuss. That's it. Oh my gosh, it's so hard to read. They all started out in Kyuss. It's easy to that. Okay, is it me or
Go to
is
the
it
next
the
album.
words?
Go-
Anyway,
what's
get the
number
Kyuss
2?
album. Get the Kyuss album. It's a mixture of distortion, new metal, grunge. It's all there.
All right, just-
Through songs like Green Machine, Molten Universe, and the Thong Song. Not the thong, that
No,
thong
not that
song.
one.
No. Without realizing it, Kyuss clearly defined a brave new world. All right, number 2, Monster Magnet, Power Trip, produced by A&M
Like
in 1998. New Jersey's Monster Magnet had their own, more diesel-fueled approach, and Power Trip was the first record to prove that stoner music could sell in its millions. Number 3, The Masters of Reality from Deaf American, in 1988. Who is the most important figure in the stoner genre? While some may claim it to be Josh Homme or David Weindorf, most would accept that Chris Goss owns that title. I guess Chris Goss is in Masters of Reality, right? Number 4, Sleep, Jerusalem.
I would probably put that as the number 1.
Sleep?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to know what it is. And that was
You're gonna get some tonight, though.
put out. We're going to get some sleep tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. London was the label in 1999. It's a 52-minute ultra monochrome album that has just one track. Oh, God, it's like a Pink Floyd song that never ends, right? Arguably the greatest of all rock and roll swindles. The result was that the band, having gone way over budget, were hastily dropped. The album became a cause. Jerusalem is where doom meets stoner. Number 5, Queens of the Stone Age, rated R, from Interscope Records in 2000. Anyone who believes that Queens had lost their edge ought to go back and give this another shot. Feel-good hit of the summer is not just hilarious, but shows up the hypocrisy in banning certain records because of naughty words. The whole tone of the record is absurdly irreverent. Number 6, Orange Goblin, Thieving from the House of God, produced by Rise Above in 2004.
I know the band Rise Above, but I've never heard of that band before when I was
No,
reading.
Rise Above is the label.
Oh, but I've heard the band
Orange Goblin.
I've never heard of Orange Goblin before.
I
When
know.
I was going through that list, I was like, who the heck is Orange Goblin? I gotta listen to them.
Britain doesn't have much of a stoner tradition. However, Orange Goblin are not just the best in the country, they're also genuinely world class. They're still a cult band. This album proved they could trade blows with any of their American or European cousins.
I wouldn't say that the UK doesn't have a
I know,
stoner
right?
history in music. I mean, if you look at go back to the Beatles,
Yeah.
go back to the Rolling Stones. I mean, there's so many other bands. I mean, the Who. I mean, there's so many bands you can mention that have smoked weed throughout their time.
That was part of their culture.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
yes. So I don't agree upon because the UK,
Weed was heavy.
yes,
And the influence.
yeah, 100%.
Number 7, we've got Fu Manchu, In Search of, put out by Mammoth in 1996. Fu Manchu is one of those bands who are always regarded as prime movers in stoner music. Fu Manchu have never really delivered a classic record. This one, though, came close. Number 8 is Brant Bjork and the Bros, Saved by Magic, produced by Duna in 2005. The former Cuse and Fu Manchu Man has always been a compelling live performer, happy to use songs as the basis for outrageous jam sessions. Number 9, Nebula. The album is Apollo, and that was put out by Liquor and Poke. That's nice. 2006. For a while.
I just got
For a while, this was the California band that everyone expected would follow the Queens of the Stone Age and Monster Magnet into the big league. It never happened, though. It may be too late for chart success. The band have been on hiatus since 2010, but Apollo put Nebula back in the saddle. And number 10, Down. Album is Nola, put out by Elektra in 1995, with a lineup that pulled members from Pantera, Corrosion of Conformity, I Hate God, and Crowbar. Down was an obvious labor of love.
hard.
The debut album that followed was in thrall to its influences, yet somehow greater than the sum of its parts. That's a good one. Yeah. That's all I got. That's your 10.
Shout out to The Rock.
Go find your
Casey Kasem over there.
Yep.
Good job.
Sure. Chart music. The counting down. The 50. What would you do on Saturday? The Saturday morning countdown.
Sunday morning. Yeah, Sunday morning.
Top 50 songs.
Casey Kasem.
Casey
For all
Kasem.
you youngins out there, Casey Kasem, just listen to his voice. He was a master at just like his voice for.
I don't think he smoked weed when he was reading.
Who knows? Hopefully. Do you think that how much is too much when smoking cannabis or using cannabis, THC altogether? I mean, we talked about paranoia and anxiety just now on this episode too, so I figured I might as well talk about how much is too much. I mean,
I think it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
If I said, 8 years ago that I was going to take 4 hits off of a joint, I would have been a dummy, right? I would have been so baked, I would have been crying in a corner.
Maybe.
Now, it's like, okay, 4, and then in an hour I'm going to have 4 more. So your tolerance obviously builds, and there's people, like, I'm up to, like, a 15 milligram edible that I can handle and feel okay. There's people who do, like, a 500 milligram.
Right.
So, and then there's, like, the average, like, low dose entry point is 2.5 grams. So for people that don't even know what all these grams mean.
Milligrams.
I'm sorry, milligrams. 2.5 is kind of the starting point. So what's too much really is dependent
on the user, right?
On the user.
So basically, if you know all about smoking weed or consuming it in your favorite way, edibles, vapes, whatever, you're a frequent smoker, you know that it's safer than any other, now this article says drugs, but anything that you use for medicine, let's just put it that way. Despite the bad reputation that cannabis gets, there's a reason that CBD and THC are used as medical treatments. That said, it is possible to smoke too much cannabis. While taking cannabis is unlikely to kill you or cause serious harm, you should know your limitations. How much is too much? I'm laughing at this because I think to myself, I never say that to myself. How much is too much? I just smoke until I don't want to smoke anymore. Too much cannabis is going vary to person. There's no set amount that someone can hit that would be too much. There are people who smoke every day, several times per day, with no issue. Some of these people take cannabis for medical purposes, while others are recreational users. As long as cannabis users are being safe, there's no reason that they shouldn't be able to use cannabis in ways that others may consider excessive. That said, new users or anyone who's sensitive to THC won't be able to use as much cannabis as those who are more experienced. Consequences. Is it deadly? It's very unlikely for anyone to experience a THC overdose that results in death or injury without outside factors. And there's been a lot of news stuff that I've been seeing that people are saying that this person smoked too much cannabis and now he fell out a window. Okay, moving on. The signs of an overdose are similar to the side effects that THC and cannabis present under normal circumstances, but taken to another level. People may experience hallucinations, anxiety, panic attacks, and rapid heart rate, fainting or vomiting. While these are unpleasant side effects, they aren't deadly in themselves. Someone who has any kind of respiratory condition, including asthma, should avoid smoking cannabis. If they must consume, it should be through an edible or tincture or in your what else? Like ripsync oil, stuff like that. People with certain mental health conditions may want to talk to the doctor first before consuming cannabis. While cannabis is often helpful, it may exacerbate mental health symptoms. If someone becomes reliant on cannabis, it may be time to cut back on consumption or take a tolerance break. People who smoke should still be able to go to work and take care of their responsibilities if they're not using it medicinally. THC side effects. While it's not deadly, there are a few side effects that should look out for if you're a new cannabis user. These side effects are normal, so knowing them ahead of time may help you stay calm. Keep in mind that different strains of cannabis and different methods of consumption may change side effects for you. Common side effects include, but are not limited to, the following: nausea, rapid heart rate, dizziness, anxiety, a feeling of moving too slow, I am right now, sleepiness, and dry mouth. So, do you smoke too much cannabis? Overall, if cannabis isn't affecting your ability to live your day-to-day life, you're probably not consuming too much of it. If you're worried that you smoke too much cannabis, though, consider talking to a mental health professional. Remember, you won't get in trouble for seeking help. So, just a brief little article. I mean, like Mrs. WeedMan said it the best. You know, personal preference, tolerance level, stuff like that. So, High Times, great. And also just one of my favorite writers of all time. He's been in many articles. High Times featured him many, many years ago. But this would have been his birthday a few days ago, and I forgot to wish him a happy birthday in the last episode we did. So Hunter S. Thompson, happy birthday. You would have been like 80-something years old, man. And a lot of my favorite books came from you. Hell's Angels was a great one. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, another one. Your books on like politics were amazing, and what you thought. I mean, you're a great journalist and phenomenal writer. So wish you were still alive. Sacha Baron, the guy who does the Borat movies and stuff like that, is suing a Massachusetts dispensary for like $9 million for using his image on a billboard. Whoops. And then legendary cannabis enthusiast, cannabis advocate, and probably one of the best growers of hash of all time, Frenchie Cannoli, passed away a few days ago, July 18th, and after suffering some complications from surgery, he was 64. His passing was unexpected and leaves his family with a gaping hole of emotion where his smile and energy usually filled, and so completely his wife Kimberly, Madame Cannoli. I think we are all appreciated by Frenchie so much was his authenticity and passion. It would give me great solace to see his face light up with a smile right now. Born in December 13th of 1956 in the south of France, he spent his early years in Africa. Then from ages 7 to 12, he lived in coastal Britannia and what he called the middle of nowhere before finishing his teenage years in France. As a young adult, Cannoli traveled the world, immersing himself in the world of hashish, inns, and hash making. Traveling to distant places in the 1970s and throughout the 1980s, visiting historical ruins and museums, learning traditions, and sharing the local life, always seeking new experiences, feeding on the newness each culture presented, was all I had dreamt about as a child, and then some, which he wrote. His travels brought him to different cannabis-producing countries where he did most of his studies on cannabis resin and local hashishans who had been practicing the art for generations. I realized today how much trust and respect was given to the clueless but eager youth I was. He continued, I shared the life of local farms from North Africa to the feet of the Himalayas in India and Nepal with only my passion for cannabis resin to open doors. In his California years, Cannoli eventually settled in California, became a father, writer, activist, and renowned teacher of the ancient art of hashish making. The process didn't happen overnight. He spent years learning about American cannabis culture, which was profoundly different from what he experienced during his youth. When I came to California, instead of it being called the place where the cannabis grows and genetics was just local on top of the terrier, I had genetics worked by my farmer, he told Tim Rhymes from a magazine cover back in 2017. It became something more than just the wild plant in the mountains of India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. The more Cannoli learned about the modern cannabis industry, the less impressed he became. They don't make hash here, he told. They collect resin. They sell the loose resin head, but they don't make hashish. Hashish is resin that has been sieved and pressed with a source of heat. That's hashish. It's sieved, not extracted. It's full of resin, head intact, and pressed with a source of heat and becomes a mass of resin. That mass of resin is named hashish. When you reject tradition about checking the science behind it and put new tech on the market without checking the science behind it, it doesn't fly, he added. That's not progression. It's going backwards. His legacy. He will be forever in the space and filled by presence of man and the love he brought to the world of Hashishans, forever flowering greenhouses, wrote. I mean, there's so many people talking about him right now. I mean, Twitter was blowing up. Instagram was blowing up. So rest in peace, Frenchie Cannoli. Wish I would have met you. Well, everybody, that's the show. Mrs. WeedMan,
Yep.
got anything else to say?
I got nothing.
Nothing?
Mm-mm.
You feeling better?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that weed helped?
Sure.
We're going to smoke more of it.
We're going to smoke more.
Are you going to have some schnacks?
No, I think that sour candy, it did the job.
Well, everybody, don't forget to check us out on WeedMan420 Chronicles on Instagram, WeedMan420 Pod on Twitter. Send us an email, WeedMan420Chronicles@gmail.com. We thank you all for listening around the world. Peace be with you all. As Paulie always says, smoke smart, puff puffing away.
Puff, puff, pass.